folks, today we're going to be having a look at Pliny. We've already looked at Cicero, Horace, Livy and Ovid. We've got Pliny and Virgil to go. There are two themes for Pliny. One is a day's hunting and one is the burdens of an estate owner. What I have done is put them both in the same video. So we're going to do an author at a time and get them done, and it just makes it more memorable as to who comes under what theme. I'll make it really clear with the headings on the slides. So you do now task as ever, feel free to pause and just translate that key vocabulary, and then we'll be ready to apply this to the text. Okay, so aga we have as field or sometimes farm, ara is the altar, rustica is the countrywoman, the country wife, colonna and convenium, they come together is convenium, and colonna for wife, so rustica, colonna go together, and these are all from Ovid. So these are from Ovid's country festival that we looked at last time, the Terminalia, links back to very early Rome. Today we're going to be looking at Pliny in the countryside. Now when Pliny's writing, quite a lot of it is letters and they're about himself. So he's writing about his experience of the countryside as somebody who lived mostly in the city really, and then goes to the countryside as his second address. So he's a really good insight into a city boy living in the countryside, in the same way that Horace is a city boy writing about the countryside in his poetry. Pliny is a city boy going out to the countryside firsthand. So that's a really key theme, city life versus country life, but also city people versus country people. And that's come through all the texts we've looked at so far. So the first bit of Pliny we're going to look at is a day's hunting. And this is when he's writing to his friend about him hunting in the countryside. Now he's writing letters actually. The fact that he's writing letters in the first place shows us he's trying to stay connected with news in the city and city life, that he feels a little bit out of the loop, a little bit of FOMO from being in the countryside. And he has a direct address, so you can expect a lot of S endings because he's speaking directly to the people who are receiving his letters. So ridebis et lycerideas, you will laugh and you may well laugh. Ego, I, ile quem nosti, I, the man whom you know, he's being really emphatic here, have caught 3 boars. Apros tres, so 3 boars, and kepi is caught. So we're going over the line because the word order is a bit of a pain. Okay, so he's showing that he's not really a dab hand in the countryside. He's a city boy out of his depth a little bit, because he thinks his friends will find it funny that he's managed to complete a bit of hunting and hunt successfully. And very fine ones too. Pulcherimos is very beautiful ones, very fine ones. Ipse inquis, you say. Yes me, ipse. Non tamen, not however, so that I totally abandon my usual inactivity and peacefulness. So inertia mea, inertia, we use this in English actually. Inertia is inactivity. Quiete, like quiet, is peacefulness. Discedere is to leave behind, okay, or abandoned. So he's saying, you know, I'm still the man you know, I've just done something unusual. Okay. Ad retia sedebam, I was sitting, sedebam, ad retia, close to the nets. So they would hunt with hunting nets, and we'll look at an image of this in a mosaic later on. Erat in proximo, there was beside me, like proximity. Non venabulum aut lancea, sed stylus e pugiares. Not a spear or a javelin, but my pen and my writing tablets. So again, we've got couplets, and we've seen this before in Cicero. Non venabulum aut lancea, sed stylus et pugilares. Non outs, not this or that, but this and this. Okay, so a bit of like rhetorical flourish. Meditabar aliquid enotabamque, ut si manus vacuas. I was thinking something over, meditabar, like meditating, and jotting it down, enotabam, like annotating or noting. Ut si manus vacuas, so that even if I brought back empty hands, plenas, here plenas is full, plenas tamen geras reportarem, that I might at least bring back reportarem or report plenas keras, full wax tablets. Okay. Hoc studendi genus, this form of studying, this kind of studying, and we have to go over the line for this bit, non est quod contemnas, is not something you should frown on. So contemnas looks like contemn. Mirum est, it is amazing, ut animus excitetur, if you look over the line, how the mind is stimulated, how it is excited, agitatione, by the exercise, motuque, and motion, corporis, of the body. Iam undique silvae et solituro ipsumque illud. The woods already all around and the solitude. So the environment is helping him to be refreshed. Very, very similar to what Horace says about the countryside. When you're far from business, you get some rest, some downtime. Silentium quod venatione datur, the silence which the hunt brings. Magna cogitationis incitamenta sunt. So the very silence which is devoted to hunting are all great stimulants to thought. So exercise and motion of the body, the woods, the solitude, the silence, all themes that we've seen in Horace. Porende cum venabere, licebit auctore me ut panarium. Accordingly, porende cum venabere, when you go hunting, on my advice, auctore me, on my advice, and this is because it's personal writing, he's writing a letter, you should also take your writing tablets. Ut panarium, panarium, like pan is bread, it's your picnic basket. So it says, you know, take some food, make a day of it. It's all very leisurely. And so we've got this contrast of the countryside as a place of hard work for people who live there and a place of leisure for people of the city. It's where they go to get a bit of respite. Lagunculam sic etiam pugiares feras. So feras is you might bring. And here we've talked about the picnic basket. Lagunculam is a drinking flask. Sic etiam pugiares, just as you bring your wax tablets, which was on the previous slide. Experieris non Dianam. You will experience, experieris, that Diana does not roam, non, and then inerare is to roam, on the hills, montibus, anymore, quam, Minervam, the Minerva. Now the reason he's mentioned Diana's the goddess of hunting, Minerva's the goddess of wisdom. So he's saying that just as much as you might go out there for sport and for blood sport, there's a lot to be gained from spending time in the countryside. It's good for your mind. You can think of it in modern terms as a kind of mindfulness. It's a real contrast to the mosaic of hunting that we see on the prescription, where we can see there are several dogs, people have gone out in a group, they're using a spear. Like boar hunting is actually really quite dangerous. Wild boar are really large, they've got tusks, they're quite aggressive. And so Pliny might not actually have caught 3 boars, he might be teasing his friend or speaking metaphorically. It's not a very realistic picture of hunting in the countryside, but it gives us a good impression of somebody from the city being a little bit out of their depth. So if we turn now to the burdens of an estate owner, this is a separate letter from Pliny, and we can see in the opening line, Caius Pliny sends greetings to his dear friend Pompeius Falco. So Pompeo Falcone suo, they're all in the dative case, and it's just the address, the 2 or 4 address of the letter. Refugaram in Tuscos, I have fled to Tuscany, ut omnia ad arbitrium meum facerum, in order to do everything, meum facerem, that I might do everything, subjunctive, to my liking, meum arbitrium. Everything is over here, everything is omnia. But this has proved impossible. Okay, hoc ne in Tuscis quidem, tam, even in Tuscany. Tam is so many. Tam multis undique, rusticorum libelis. Libelis is the petitions like libel, and rusticorum is of the country dwellers. Et tam querulis inquieto, and so many grumbles from the country folk. So rusticorum is the country folk, and you can see that Pliny describes them as being very, very separate from himself. So when he uses the term rusticorum, it might be a bit negatively, a bit of an insult. Okay, on all sides. I read considerably more reluctantly than my own. So he's less bothered about country affairs than he is his own city affairs. So let's find it. Lego, which I read magis invitus more reluctantly than my own, quam meos. For nam, I am also for I am revising some of my shorter cases. Retracto enim actiunculas. Okay. Quod post intercapedinem temporis, after such a long period of time, temporis is of time, is both tedious, et is both an and acerbum, and painful. Okay. Here it's a bit unnecessary to say both, but we've got a couplet for emphasis. Is both tedious and painful. My account books, my rationes, think rations, are being neglected, negliguntur, like negligent, as though I were not even here, quasi absente me, as though I was not even here, think absent. Occasionally, interdum, tamen, however, equum conscendo, so I get on. Conscendo is like ascendo. Ascendo is I get up. Conscendo is I get on to. My horse, my equum. And perform, I go, I act, or I perform as the head of the community. Patrem familiae. So here, like, the father of the family is translated as head of the community. So he's aware that in the countryside, there is this kind of family atmosphere, and we saw that quite a lot in Ovid. It's just that Pliny's playing it as a role, he's not actually part of it. In Ovid's Terminalia festival, everyone in the family gathers around to perform the rituals together, and here he sees himself as the head of the family, the head of the household, really because he's the gaffer, he's the person running the estate, so he's missing the mark with what it really means to be from the countryside. Okay. To the extent that I gallop around one or other part of my estates, aliquam partem praediorum, okay, but only for a ride. Sed pro gestatione percuro, but I run around just like for a ride, just for the laugh, really. Tu consuetudinem serva, nobisque sic rustici servana acta perscribe. Do keep your usual custom, tu consuetudinem serva, and write in detail the news of the city to us who have become so countrified. Nobisque sic rusticis urbana acta perscribe. Vale. Now there's a little bit of humour there, isn't there? Because he's not that countrified, he's just playing at it. In both of Pliny's texts, A Day's Hunting and The Burdens of an Estate Owner, it's really about him playing at being in the countryside for a bit of a rest and for a bit of a holiday. And he's aware of that, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. And he's really, begging for news from the city. No matter where he is, he's doing city boy things. He's writing on his wax tablets. He's playing at being, an estate owner by galloping around on his horse. And he owns all his own land. So if you think back to what Horace said in The Changing Face of the Countryside, Pliny is one of these wealthy city boys who's come in, made a big estate. So rather than just looking at key themes on the last slide, because I've done that all the way through, I just want to highlight another really good tool for revision here. So in book 5 of the Cambridge Latin course, there's a whole section on country estates. If you go to this, I've put a little QR code to the right up that's in English, because I don't have the property rights for this, okay, so for copyright purposes, this isn't my work. It's Cambridge Latin course, but it's a really good resource. And the textbooks are open access online, they're available for free for you to use their website. So if you scan the QR code, that will take you to a write-up of Pliny's villa. And also just like countryside villas in general, be a good bit of context, and there are also some translation passages that would help you both with the language paper and with the vocabulary for the set text. So I really recommend having a little look at this if you're kind of torn whether to revise for language or literature at the minute. This could help you do both. It gives a really good floor plan of Pliny's villa at Laurentum. So when he's talking about, oh, I gallop around some part of my estate or another, this gives you an impression of just how vast his estate would have been and the different kinds of rooms we've got. A little bit like when Horace was speaking about the mega mansions and we looked at the fresco of the mega mansion. We can see that a lot of Pliny's rooms and the setup of his villa, country villa, is really about leisure and relaxation and not about farming. So Horace was moaning that a lot of farming land, a lot of olive groves would be taken up with pleasure gardens and pools, and Pliny's kind of made his own spa. So he's got dining rooms and bedrooms, he's got loads of room for staff because he's not doing his own work, and he's got a bathhouse, he's got a tepidarium and a caldarium and a heated swimming pool. So he is one of the annoying city boys, the annoying second homers that Horace moans about, okay? Even though Horace is, from the city himself, it seems. He is that guy. And so when he's writing letters, he's writing from that point of view. If we look at the mosaic as well, you can reference these in your essays. He's talking about, it's such a first world problem, isn't it? Everybody from the countryside wants to come and ask me things and ask me for help with things and ask me for help with, little lawsuits and legal matters because they're just country bumpkins. But he's also got a lot of room for staff. He really sees people from the countryside as other and separate. And he makes it very clear he would rather be dealing with business and interesting things from the city, which is why he's begging his friend to write back to him. So he is really treating it as a second home, as a holiday home. Okay, so I really encourage you to go and have a look at that resource. I'm going to perhaps have a look at it with my class between the two papers to help us prepare. But there's some passages there that will help you with the language paper and the literature paper if you go on the CLC website. Okay.